My friend, you have no reason to fear the end of humanity, for humanity has died a long time ago. Its last specimen's about to go extinct as we speak. What it has degenerated into is a bunch of hairless apes, staining the planet's surface with its greed, lack of reason and insanity. If anything should strike fear into your heart, then the survival of this subhuman kind. It is either them or all life on Earth. My friend, let us hope they'll be the first to go.
Once upon a time, somewhere in the Pacific Ocean lay the peaceful continent of Equestria, named that way by its equine inhabitants. Their intelligent and harmony-loving race had brought forth a blooming culture and a system built to establish ecological equilibrium. Without exaggeration, one may say that everything worked fine on the state, ruled by a merciful queen and a bunch of royalty. One day, though, a boat arrived at the shore. It was loaded with a group of naked apes, who seemed very hungry, tired, and defenseless. So, naturally, they were greeted politely and given all they needed to survive: food, shelter, and a little patch of land to live on. As they were granted those, they surprised everyone by actually saying, "Thank you!" Obviously, these dumb-looking apes could talk. It would show later on that they had a lot more hidden talents. The first thing they needed to be taught, though, was that hunting down defenseless critters wasn't the only way of finding oneself something to eat. They learned the benefits of agriculture quite quickly, and soon were equally effective farmers as their teachers. This impressed and satisfied the ponies, and they were looking forward to a bright future of successful collaboration. As years went by, the apes multiplied and their village grew. They were granted bigger fields to further feed their families, and produced so many crops that in the end they could even deal them for clothing and other items of luxury. Ponies often visited the humans, as they called themselves, to exchange goods and experiences, or just admire their ways of working. None of them had any magical abilities or wings, but their front legs ended in devices they could use to lift and hold things, as well as for all kinds of craft. Occasionally they used them to lift a foal into the air, which caused the foal itself to squeak excitedly, but which its mother found rather unsettling. There was something generally unsettling about the company of a human for all but the most courageous ponies, but they wrote it off as an alien fascination. Only when the village, which had become a veritable town by now, was caused to split in two by a minor argument that escalated into a violent conflict, doubts arose about the character of Equestria's new citizens. Those doubts grew when the two villages began to produce arms, swords, spears, and bows, from leftover copper, and used them to battle each other. Equestria had never seen such brutality. It was only then introduced to the meaning of words like rape and slaughter. Soon it should learn the meaning of a third word: genocide. Ponies had stayed out of human settlements since they declared war on each other. They were now many, each one steadily growing and following its own cult. Some of the ponies began to feel like strangers in their own land, when they even came near these breeding grounds of hate. In return, the humans started to see them as strangers, as a competing power on their new continent. During one winter, when there was a shortage of food in most of the towns except for one, the others united and declared war on it, claiming it had stolen goods from them which could never be proven. They attacked at night, setting fire on some of the wooden houses, instantly killing a lot of their sleeping neighbors. Those who escaped the flames fought back bitterly, but at the end of the following day, none of them were left. Their barns were emptied, and so was their town,
except for the heaps of dead bodies and pools of blood staining the snowy streets. When the news of the incident spread over Equestria, the last hopes for a bright future next to this new race faded. It had discovered an earthly paradise and defiled it with its cruelties and barbarism. Every pony agreed that it had to go, one way or another. Of course, the Queen, having a lot of experience with minor conflicts, insisted on trying to resolve the problem peacefully. Her sister agreed, but both didn't have a clue how to meet the power they were dealing with. So they summoned an old acquaintance, a demon called Discord, to help them with the chaotic matter at hand. Having the whole issue explained to him, the old chap shuddered. His tactically schooled mind went through all possible solutions, but the result stayed the same. War could not be avoided. Those were bad news for various reasons. First, war implied killing. No equestrian had ever killed a fellow pony. The concept was beyond their comprehension. Second, there was only one military organization, and it never fought a single serious battle: the Royal Guard. Third, by forcefully bringing back harmony this way, they'd act against the very foundations of equestrian ethics, becoming the villain themselves. It was a tough decision. But finally, the Queen announced to all of ponydom that they had a war to fight, and needed to prepare for battle. A challenging task. Of course, all volunteers had to put on armor that would protect them against their enemies' attacks and make them feel safe. But even though there was an abundance of them, since most ponies recognized the gravity of the situation, only very few actually wanted to fight. That's true. You can guard your body, but you can't guard your mind against the horrors of war. This became apparent during their first attack on a human settlement, the weakest and most desolate of all. Though the humans were vastly outnumbered, they battled more effectively, and lots of ponies had already been badly wounded, when a single stallion finally managed to smash in one human's skull with his hooves. This, of course, didn't impress them much. But since it's been done once, other stallions followed his example, until they finally achieved victory at a high cost. The following battles went similarly. Humans were usually outnumbered, but fought bravely and killed ruthlessly enough to balance it out. Unfortunately, at this point the human settlements decided to form an alliance against the old Solar Empire, and were not only prepared better when attacked, but also started their own counter-offensive. Being under attack, they would collect most of their powers to defend themselves, but also send a small group of warriors to the attacker's hometown. With it being completely defenseless, they tried to destroy as much of it as possible and otherwise discourage the enemy units by murdering or enslaving their families, for example. Although upon realizing this, the equestrian military leaders used the speed of its Pegasi and the teleporting powers of its unicorns to get ahead of them. This strategy was effective enough for the humans to gain the upper hand. The war wasn't over then, but it became clear who would win it. Town after town got taken over and cleansed of its equine citizens, stallions, mares, foals. Its art and architecture destroyed before their eyes. Finally, it was mighty Canterlot's turn. The center of equestrian culture and political power would be its last and biggest bastion to fall. The humans showed no respect for its greatness, or for anything that lived there. They only saw a hostile base that needed to be destroyed. Celestia herself sat in her castle, desperate, losing all hope, and her magical powers along with it. Equestria's downfall was too much for her sensitive soul to witness. When their troops stormed her palace, She was sitting in the throne room with her sister, each crying into the other's ruffled mane, and didn't even bother to resist when they tore them apart and led them away to be publicly executed. With its pounding heart being ripped out violently, humans were now the rightful new rulers of what once was a perfect world.
And that's how Equestria ended.